And with me now is the Democratic governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer. Governor, thank you very much for joining me. Before we talk about economic aid, though, I want to ask you a quick question about COVID. We've got some new numbers from our medical team, and they show an uptick in COVID cases in your state, up 88% in the last 2 weeks. That is the largest increase of any state, but you are continuing to ease restrictions. And I just want to play really quickly something Dr. Anthony Fauci said, addressing you directly.
She's a really good governor. I know. I think she's done some really good things. But I am telling them, just hold off for a bit. When you get the overwhelming majority of your population vaccinated, the chances of there being a surge are minuscule. So just hang in there. Don't turn the switch on and off. Pull back gradually. Not all at once, all things are off and everything goes. That's not a good idea.
So I know you've responded to those comments. You've said easing restrictions does not mean easing mask restrictions. But the fact is the numbers are going up in your state. So what do you attribute that to?
So, Katie, I think first and foremost, it's important to have some perspective here. And I think the world of Dr. Fauci, I mean, you can tell I pay homage to him. He is an incredible mind, and we have followed the science. And I think that's why Michigan has largely had a very great strategy to respond to COVID. These numbers represent an increase based on Michigan having one of the lowest positivity rates at the beginning of this year because we did a pause to save lives during the heat of the uptick in November. Other states saw their ERs fill up. We brought our numbers down. We were one of the few states that really were able to accomplish that. So when we go from 3% positivity rate to over 6%, it does look like a doubling, and yet it's still quite a bit lower than other states. That's not an excuse. It's just important for perspective. This virus is still a very real threat, and I think that this is a sharp reminder of that fact. We've got about 3.6 million shots in arms. Our vaccination program is about the ninth, top in the nation in terms of how many shots in arms we're getting in. But if we drop our guard, we start to get tired of this. We move from 25% to 50% in our restaurants. We're going to see some of this uptick, and I think that's what we're seeing. And that's why we've got to remind people, until we get to that over 70% vaccination rate of our adults 16 and up, we've got to mask up. We've got to continue to socially distance. We've got to wash our hands. These are all critically important things that we do in these days as we're coming out of this long, dark tunnel we've been in.
I want to get to infrastructure and guns, but very quickly follow up. Is there a number, a 9%, 10%, 11% number where you will start saying, hey, listen, we gotta pull back and impose some new restrictions again?
Well, we're watching it very closely. What we know is in our hospitalizations, there are many fewer people that are in the ICU. These are younger adults who are getting COVID because we've largely vaccinated most of our older population. We know a lot more about our common enemy, that a mask works. We have vaccines and we have testing. And so these are all important tools for us to stay open. And that's what we hope to do. If we have to take steps backward, are we looking at this like a dial, not a switch? We don't drop everything and we don't do anything dramatic. We've got to make adjustments along the way, and we'll continue to watch the numbers and be driven by the data.
So let's talk about infrastructure. The Biden team obviously has a lot of big ideas. What do you want to see as the governor of Michigan?
Well, I testified in front of the U.S. Senate a few weeks ago with my friend Larry Hogan, Republican from Maryland, about the need for a bold infrastructure plan. And by bold, it needs to be resilient, about resilient infrastructure with just in the wake of what happened in Texas with them losing energy for so many days. I mean, this climate change is real, and we have to have policies that reflect our commitment to mitigating the kind of damage that we've done to our climate. But we also need to rebuild. And I ran on fixing the damn roads. I'm glad that Pete Buttigieg is our Secretary of Transportation. I know he's committed to doing just that, but it has to extend to bridges and broadband infrastructure and water infrastructure underneath the ground. And that's why I think it's really incumbent on Congress to be bold, to think in comprehensive ways so that we can solve this problem as a nation.
You talk about water infrastructure, and people are going to think about Flint, Michigan, and the problem that was had there with lead in the water. What sort of financial aid do you still need in Michigan to make sure that that is not a problem ever again and ceases to be a problem?
Well, there were a lot of decisions that created that crisis. And since I've taken over as governor, we've really worked hard to try to settle some of the lawsuits and give the people of Flint the support that they need. We've made great progress on replacing the pipes. We have a mayor who is doggedly working to get that done. It was a problem that was really created by some decisions to save a few pennies. And harmed a whole city. And so we are going to continue our work to take care of the people and make sure that we've leveled the playing field. We've made great strides, but there's more work to do.
Bad decisions. Let's talk about guns very quickly. There is a lot of talk about banning assault-style weapons, semi-assault-style weapons. You had an issue at the State House where lawmakers were intimidated by some militia groups who came in carrying things like AR-15s. Where do you stand on banning them nationwide?
Well, I think it's important that Congress take action. We've seen these tragedies play over and over again, and my heart breaks for the families who lost loved ones, both in Georgia and in Colorado, just in the recent days. I think it's really important that we recognize that this is a moment where we need to make changes. We need to ensure that these weapons of mass death don't fall into the hands of people who are trying to intimidate, hurt, or kill their fellow Americans.
What changes do you support?
Well, I think that there are a lot of changes that we could make. I mean, we've seen Congress debate some things in terms of background checks, in terms of the things that can be used to modify guns to make them weapons of mass destruction. I think there are a lot of things that common sense would dictate, make good sense in terms of how we keep these guns out of hands of people who shouldn't have them. And I think we've got to engage with
for a nationwide ban on semi-assault style weapons.
Well, as governor of Michigan, I can't propose that, but I can tell you that I think we need to have that kind of a conversation and robust debate. We also need to enlist responsible gun owners into this conversation, because I know here in Michigan, we've got a lot of people who love to hunt. They are responsible gun owners who recognize background checks are important. Some of these mass destruction weapons don't have a place in the common sale in this country. So I do think that there is space for common ground here, but we can't be dissuaded, and we can't let one lobby keep us from finding that common ground.
Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, thank you very much for joining us. Always appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.